I'm here at the RYA Dinghy and Watersports Show 2023 with David Mossman of Marlow Ropes and Hattie Rogers, who we can see there is clutching the YJA Yachtsman of the Year trophy. Now, David, you've been, I believe, working with Hattie for a year. What's it like and what does it mean to support sailors in their progress?
So we set the Youth Ambassador Programme up 2 years ago, and Hattie came on board last year, but we've been watching what Hattie been doing with those epic journeys in the Wasp across the Channel, you know, and we're watching people usually a year ahead of them coming into the programme. So Hattie had popped up on our radar because she was doing different things, bold things that other people weren't doing. So that's how Hattie sort of came to my attention as somebody we would want to have in. And then looking at how the Wasp class was developing outside of 29 at Ilka and the other pathways, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute, we really felt the Wasp and Hattie had a real place in our programme.
And Hattie, what does it mean to have the support of Marlow Ropes?
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, the whole team is great, and David's been fantastic to work with throughout the last year, and I look forward to continuing for a long time. And I mean, all of the technical support, I've learnt a load, like all my splicing and stuff has really improved, I think, throughout the last year with David's support. So yeah, no, it's been great, and may it continue.
And David, we see the Olympic coverage everywhere, and we know that the sailors at the very top end of the sport are going to be getting everything absolutely perfect. But I know it's hugely important for you to work with everyday sailors, the people who are up and down the clubs all over the country and all over the world nowadays. So when you're working with someone like Hattie, who isn't taking the Olympic pathway, is actually working in the classes which many, many people sail, does that provide a different kind of feedback for you?
It's funnily enough, it's as important as everything else, because I think this is something that you and I chatted about some 4 or 5 years ago about, you know, grassroots to Grand Prix, and for the Marlow business, you know, we with Rob Henderson and with Megan involved, we have a massive amount of skills in the building. But I haven't raced and sailed every single boat. I haven't sailed a Wasp. So, you know, to have that feedback from all of our ambassadors about the different boats they're sailing and the different technical issues, and how the splicing relates that they need for that class, you know, we can keep youth ambassadors and young people coming through. But it's really amazing to have people who are not following that Olympic pathway and haven't come from elite sport. So it's really important. I can't have everything in my head. I have to learn it from people, like everybody in our industry.
I know from many conversations with David that you are on the phone, on the email, describing the different scenarios and what actually happens with the ropes in different areas. And I have one area, was it a main sheet system that you had that had too little friction in it?
Yeah, so we tried a tapered main sheet system after the show actually last year. So my boat was on the show, and David and I were looking at ways to improve the systems that were currently there. And yeah, I mean, it's trial and error, isn't it? You've got to try different systems and different rope in different places, and not everything's going to work, but yeah, we changed it quite quickly after that. But everything else has worked so well, and the ropes have lasted really, really long time. So just changed them, lasted, yeah. So it's been great.
One of the things you've brought up twice already, splicing. We still see knots everywhere. I need you to reinforce what happens when you tie a knot in a rope and what happens when you properly splice a rope.
So yeah, there's the big difference is the move from polyester ropes to Dyneema. So with Dyneema, you really need to splice it. It's a great seamanship skill to learn. It's one of those old crafts, you know, that we should all hang on to. But if you tie a knot in a piece of Dyneema, you lose 80% of the brake load. So that's pretty big. And we're pushing people on Dyneema ropes, even in dinghy fleets, to go smaller. It's less expensive. It's going to work better through the blocks and systems because it's smaller diameters, and we've done this with a lot of Hattie stuff. You know, our perception of rope is it has to be a certain size. On Dyneema you come really small, but if you come really small you need to splice it. And it's, you know, at 8-year-olds can learn to splice Dyneema in 20 minutes. You know, we do it with the Oppie kids all the time. So it's really achievable, and Hattie's really pushed me the last week to say I need more splicing, and the youth program with Marlow needs more splicing earlier on, and we saw that yesterday with them all here really owning their own splicing, whether it's a top or an ilk or anything else. So we've got to just keep pushing.
It is astounding every time I look at the statistics as to what happens when you tie a knot compared to when you splice. And with those splices, when you first came into a wasp, were you using splices straight away, or is this a skill that you have learned?
Oh, it's definitely a skill I've learned over the last year. My splicing is no good. Well, it wasn't anywhere near as good as it is now last year, so I've learned a lot over the last year. I think typically in junior and more junior than youth, but junior kind of classes, a lot of the parents do a lot of the boat work, and I think that Dad was very keen to get splicing and doing a lot of the rope work on my boat, so it's really been great to take over that and learn as much as possible. It's been good.
And lastly, you've got the 8-year-olds learning their splices, but it's people sort of my sort of age where I grew up with knots, and getting them to change their mindset to splices. Are you making progress with that?
We are. So post-pandemic, we've gone back to running the Marlow rope shows at clubs on a Wednesday night. So I did one at Eastbourne Sovereign and one at Cowes Corinthian before Christmas, and we had 50, 60 people at each one. So we're back out on the road at a club level, putting that knowledge across, doing fun splicing evenings, and just, seeing people at clubs again. And that, we get a lot of feedback there as well. So that's back up and running. I think maybe 3,500 people we've seen through that mechanism. So a lot of work to do.
Well, David, Hattie, I've got to say many thanks indeed for your time. And it's great hearing about Marlow Rope supporting not just our great Olympians, but the grassroots sailors, and making sure that we're using the new technology in the right way. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.